We're learning Tanya, and we're at chapter 15, Perek Tezvav, on page 40. So in chapters 12 and 13, the Alter Rebbe explained to us the mahus. Mahus means the essence of a Beinoni. I'm summarizing the chapters, the theme of the chapters. 12 and 13 is about who is the Beinoni, mahus, the essence of the Beinoni, and various expressions of that essence, as we discussed throughout 12 and 13. In chapter 14, the Alter Rebbe explained how every person at any given time should and can be a Beinoni. That was the message of chapter 14. And now, in chapter 15, the Baal HaTanya will explain what is the primary activity used by the Beinoni to be a Beinoni. That's what he's going to talk about in chapter 15. And the answer is, succinctly, struggle, war, fighting, going against your nature. All of those descriptions is the activity that needs to be used by the person to display Beinoni-like avoda. And if there's something that's easy for a person, even though they're doing it, they're not a Beinoni. They're a good person, and they might even be a holy person, but they're not in the Beinoni mindset. So let's learn that now inside. Chapter 15, page 40, Perek Tezvav. Uvizeh Yuvan Hillel, if you don't mind, mute yourself. Uvizeh move Yuvan, with this we'll comprehend Masha Kosov. There's a verse in Malachi. It says in Malachi, Ushaftem uriisem, you will contemplate and see and focus. Bein tzaddik l'rasha, the difference between someone who's righteous and someone who's wicked, as well as bein oved elikim, someone who's a servant of God, la'asher lo yavodeh, to someone who's not considered a servant. The Gemara in Chagiga questions the redundancy in the verse. If you're a tzaddik, it would seem like you're a servant of God. If you're a rasha, you're not a servant of God. So the verse in Malachi that uses four different terms, tzaddik, rasha, 1 and 2, oved elikim, 3, number 4, lo yavodai, seemingly terms 3 and 4 are redundant. It's exactly, seemingly, the meaning of what a tzaddik and a rasha is. And the Gemara questions that. So what is the Gemara? So we understand from the Gemara's question, the Baal HaTanya is alluding to everything I'm saying now. He doesn't write it clearly, but this is what he's alluding to. From the Gemara's question, you see that there is a difference between these four terms, and that term 3 and 4 are not just a repeat of terms 1 and 2 using different Hebrew words. So the question is, what's the difference? Says the Baal HaTanya, Sha'hefresh bein oved elikim, the difference between someone who we call a servant of God to the term called tzaddik, who the difference is, she'oved hu loshen hoive. Oved is present tense. Shu be'emtza ha'avodah, meaning he's in the middle of working. He's in the middle of his job. Shehi ha-milchama, this refers to the battle in my Yetzirah with the evil inclination, with his gabed olav, to overpower it. Ulegorshay, and to chase it away. Meha'ir Katana, from the small city. That means the body, the Yetzer Hara wants to dominate our body. So the Oved Elikim, the servant of God, works hard to overpower those urges of the Yetzer Hara and to chase it away. Shelo Yislabish Beivore Aguf, so that the Yetzer Hara doesn't invest itself ultimately in the limbs of the body. This war that the Oved Elikim does, be'emes avoida, in truth, it's avoida v'omel gadol. It's a very, very great, difficult service and toil. It's a lot of work. It's not just, you see, the Alter Rebbe adds the word tamid, constant work, Hillel. In other words, I've done my job and I can rest and relax. No, my friend. The Yetzer Hara comes to you today with this and tomorrow with this, and every day there's something else, right? So, therefore, the Alter Rebbe says this is an avodah tamid. It's a constant job. And look what he concludes. V'hainu habeinani, not the tzaddik. So right here, the Alter Rebbe has answered part of the question. That when it says in the Pasuk of Malachai, Avram, focus and see tzaddik and Rasha, servant of God and non-servant, servant of God is not tantamount to tzaddik. Tzaddik is, as we've been learned in chapter 10 of Tanya, is someone who has eradicated his Yetzer Hara either partially or completely. That's a tzaddik. But here, in the verse in Malachai, it says, Oved Elikim. A tzaddik is not an Oved Elikim. We're going to learn in a moment. He's an Evet. Let's look at the next line. We're about 6 lines down from the beginning of chapter 15. Avol HaTzadik, but the tzaddik, he's not called an Oved, present tense. Nikri is called Eved Hashem, a servant of God, B'Shem HaToyer, figuratively speaking. So, Avi, there's a difference between Oved Elokim and Evet. Evet means I've completed my job. I already served in the army, Moshe. I graduated, and now I'm in Chicago, working. You're an Evet. You've done your job. Evet means I'm still in the army. Who's in the army? The Beinani or the Tzaddik? The Beinani. The Tzaddik is graduated. The urges are not there. The Beinani, the urges are there constantly. That's why the Pasuk in Malachai that the Alter Rebbe begins with this chapter, which the Gemara in Chagiga, as I told you, asks, seemingly it's redundant, because Oved Elokim seems to be a tzaddik, says the Alter Rebbe. No, not according to the way we're learning Pshat and Tanya here. That an Oved is present tense. That means he's in the middle of a struggle. That's not a tzaddik. So when it says Ushaftem or Isem, look at the beginning of the pasuk. See the difference between tzaddik l'rasha, bein Oved Elikim l'asher lo yavodai. These are 4 terms, and the term number 3 and term number 4 are not a redundancy of term number 1 and term number 2. Because term number 1 is a tzaddik, which we would call Eved, past tense. He is already accomplished the fight. He won the round. He won. He got rid of his urge. He's an Evet. And then in Tanya, what we're talking about is a Beinani. He didn't win yet. And guess what? He never will win. What do you mean he'll never win, Moshe? As far as the urge is concerned, he will be on his deathbed and still have an urge. And like the story with the Kotzker, he's laying on his deathbed and thinking, what are they going to say about me, about the Kotzker, after I die? And you might say, well, he's a tzaddik, so how could that be? But let's not go there right now. The point being, the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh Habamis, is there to the very end. And even when you're on your deathbed and it's about over, and you're thinking about God and everything else, what are you thinking about? What are they going to say in my eulogy? What's going to say on my tombstone? What's going to be my legacy? On and on, right? Because and therefore you have to be an Oved Hashem till the last day on earth, the last breathing moment. That's an Oved Elikim. And that's why Dalton Rebbe says, before the large period, Vahainu ha-Beinani. This is the Beinani. So what we know right now, from this section in Tanya, is that a Beinani is an activist. An activist who's in the middle of waging a war. He cannot sit on his loins and relax and play golf and say, oh, it's time now to take a breather. There's no breather when it comes to Avodas Hashem. Because whatever you're doing on the golf course, when you're playing golf, how are you playing golf? And where are you playing golf? And with whom are you playing golf? In other words, even in relaxation, let's put it this way. Even in relaxation, there's always challenges. And there's always issues. And let's say family simchas, and let's say, in good times in shul together. This guy wants this aliyah, this guy wants to sit here, this guy doesn't want you to blow your nose. I told you, in shul I sit next to someone, he gets upset when I blow my nose. He says it's disgusting, and he runs out. Okay. The first time in my life I've ever had a person say it's disgusting out of thousands of people. There's never any rest. You're in shul, you're with your talis, you're against the wall, you're not bothering anyone, and someone says, don't blow your nose here. Okay? Shtuyot, right? But these are the realities. These are realities. So it's Beinani. Basically, you're walking and sleeping and talking Beinani day and night. Potential Beinani. We call that an Oved Elokim. Oved with a Vav. Aleph, Vav, Veis Dalet. Present tense. And that's not a tzaddik. Now let's go to and the Alter Rebbe gives an example of the Oved Elokim. Look what he says. K'moy Shem Chacham Melech. Take the name Chacham, wise, someone who's wise. Yaini, please put on your mute. Oy Melech, someone who's a king. Shekvar nase Chacham Melech. It's not that he just became Chacham, or he just became a Melech. He already attained the state of Chacham, of wise, and Melech, and king. So kach, so too. This individual, who we call a tzaddik, kvar ovad v'gomar, he already served, and he completed legamri avodas ha-milchama im hara, his battle with Ra. He completed it. Ad ki vayigarsheu vayelach loi, to the point where he chased it away and it left. And within a tzaddik, his heart is hallowed within me. Right? So that's the difference between term 1 and term 1, tzaddik, and term 3, Oved Elokim. Now the Alter Rebbe says, I'll explain to you the difference between term 2, Russia, and term 4, Lo Yavodai. Since within a Beinani there are 2 levels. Oved Elikim, and now the Alter Rebbe there's a type of Beinani that we call Lo Yavodai. Okay, so now this is a new nuance. You have your typical Beinani, which we call the servant of God. He's actively in service. He's enlisted. And then you have a type of a Beinoni that we call Lo Yavodoi. He's a Beinoni, but he's not serving. Let's see. Va'avo bikein ein a Rasha. Now you would think, Chevra, that a Beinoni, who's actively a Beinoni, he should be, a Beinoni that's not waging the war and giving in to his Yetzer Hara is a Rasha. Well, the verse here, Malachi, says no. There's one type of Beinoni that we call, there's one type of individual that we call a Rasha, and that's a real Rasha. And then we have another individual who's not a Rasha, he's actually a Beinoni. But what type of Beinoni is he? He's a Lo Yavodoi Beinoni. And what does that mean? Let's look further. Ki loy over miyom of shum aveira kala. The Alter Rebbe says he's never desecrated even the most lenient sin. Remember, we discussed it. It means his state of mind right now is he'll never commit a sin, even the most lenient type of sin, the easiest type of sin. He won't do it. So how can you call him a Rasha? You can't. 1 second. And also regarding the Gam Kaim Kol Mitzvos, and also regarding his positive attitude of fulfilling mitzvahs, he does everything within his ability to fulfill any mitzvah. The Talmud Torah connected kulam, and he learns Torah, which corresponds to all mitzvahs. Like Rabbah, right? He doesn't seize his lips from study. So if that's the case, Alter Rebbe's rhetorical question to himself is, so why is he called a Lo Yavodoi? He's doing everything right. He's not committing sins. And he's learning. Hello. Because he doesn't fight. He has the light of God shining within the mind, that controls the heart canal. And because his Yetzer Hara doesn't get in the way, top of page Chaf Aleph, Levatloi to disturb him from his Torah learning v'avodosah in service of God. Vein tzarich lilchayim imay klal. He doesn't have to wage war. And look at the example he gives. Kigoyin, for example, shu masmid bilimudai. This fellow is a masmid. He loves to learn bitivoi. That's his nature. There's a person who has a nature to go jogging every morning, enjoys exercise, and it's natural. And this person, instead of jogging, he learns. And he gets geschmack from learning. Mitaldusai. And he has it in his genes. Al yedei takboidas hamor shchayra. Because he's what we call the overpowering of the bitter gall. Within a person, there's the gallbladder, there's gall the right, and there's the left. So happiness comes from one side, and bitterness and frustration. And also, Mara Shchayra usually is translated in the community as depression, but doesn't always mean depression. It means that the person is happy or sitting by himself in a corner, learning, davening, reading a book, and all that. And overall, he's not smiling much, and he's not, you look at him always, he has the sour face on himself. He's a Mara Shchayra.
Sounds like a lip bug.
It's not, my dear friend, I could show you Hasidim that are that way too. But yes, people have made the general distinction between Litvak Jewry and Hasidic Jewry. But trust me, it's not about, it's within the person. Yes, Hillel.
I just, since the Baal Tanya made this distinction about that he's an Obed Hashem, or Eved Hashem.
Who? Wait. Hillel, who is an Eved? I want to see if you understand. Who's an Eved?
the one who has already served. He's already waged this conflict.
Okay, the tzaddik. So no, say the word. The tzaddik. The tzaddik.
Right, it's that. Okay, so he what we're saying. It seems to me what he's saying is that this becomes his nature. It becomes his temperament. So it's no longer a struggle, we might say in our terms, right?
Right.
So I just wanted to say, but it seems like when we use the term Russia, that that here we're talking about not somebody who's that necessarily that's his nature. Maybe this is Hasidus. We don't give up on him. That he's become a Russia, but in his nature. But he's defined as a Russia because he's doing something wrong at a particular time. So it just seems like an interesting distinction. So that we're not talking about him that he's gone over and that's become his nature, his temperament. We don't give up on him in that sense.
I hear your point. I hear your point, and it's correct. But I'm hearing also. I think you might be missing an important point that the Alter Rebbe is making here. It's important to clarify right now. This last issue of fighting against your nature, or is it natural to you? He's not talking about it in the tzaddik. He's talking about it in the Beinani.
In the right.
So Eved Hashem, Hillel, Eved Hashem is tzaddik. We're not worried about the tzaddik. What your point about a tzaddik is also true and can be discussed, but that's not what
he's. So let me put it in Beinani terms. So this is a guy who may not act on his impulses to bepoel mamish.
Right.
He may not have a yetzer hara for a particular thing.
Right.
But it's no essential struggle for him.
Exactly. Yeah, and look at. So that's why the examples are very, very important. Look at the next example. I just want to the third line on page Chafal. V'chein and so too. Ein loy milchama b'tayvus noshim. He has no desire for women. He's cold. He can put him on a beach with women that are dressed very not sneers, and he walks right by. It's hard to imagine it. Don't fathom him. He don't care. Mipnei shehu mitzunan b'tivoi. He's cold. So name. B'tivoi. V'chein shar tainugi olam hazeh. Regarding all other things, put him in front of delicious steaks and everything else. Who mechuser hergesh hanoas b'tivoi. He naturally doesn't have that feeling of desire and temptation. V'lochein ein tzarech lisboinen kol kach b'gdulus Hashem. This individual doesn't require much meditation and how great God is. L'hoiled mibinosei, to give rise from his meditation to ruach das v'is Hashem, but moiche from coming from his mind. L'hishomer shelo laver al mitzvahs leisei. Said he doesn't need the meditation to get him to go on the straight path, not to commit a negative commandment. And so too, v'avas Hashem, to love God, believe b'ledovke boy, to cleave to God, b'kiyam mitzvah Torah, v'talmud Torah connected kula. He doesn't need that. Ella da'iloi, for this individual who's cold, it's enough. Da'iloi bi'ava musuteres, the latent hidden love that's Hashem belev, close Yisrael, that all Jews have. And for him, it's adequate to access it. And we're all called that. And therefore we're called lovers of God's name. Says the Alter Rebbe, this type of individual is called loy avodoi. Remember, in practice, like Hillel said, in thought, speech, and action, he doesn't act on his urges. But will you credit him that he's a type of a Beinani? Remember, we're talking about a Beinani. Is he a type of a Beinani? Yoni, please put your thing on. Yoni, is he type of a Beinani that's fighting? No, he's not. Fighting meaning struggling and overcoming? No. And that's why the Pasuk in Malachai says, Lo Yavodai. So he's not a Rasha. When it's the term number 2, Ushaftem or Isem Ben Tzadik LeRasha, that's a Rasha. That's someone who commits a sin. Term number 4, Lo Yavodai, is a Beinani. He doesn't commit a sin. So why is he called Lo Yavodai? Because he doesn't exert effort. It's natural for him.
So it seems to me a useful distinction here is we can define for our own lives those things that we have those things that we have issues with, and those things that we don't. I don't have to particularly. This is something I don't particularly have to work on, but this is my issue. This is where I have to wage the war.
Right. And there's a very important idea that comes from what we just learned. As great as the Beinani is, we've got 12, 13, 14, and 15, the Alter Rebbe throws like a bomb at us. Like, you would think after 12, 13, and 14, the Beinani was davening all day, and, like, wow. Then at the end, 15, he basically says, hey, all of those type of Beinani, if it's natural for them, they're not the ultimate Beinani. They're called Lo Yavodai, because you're not actively pushing yourself. This is phenomenal. Go tell this to someone who loves to learn, sits in a kollel, sits in a yeshiva, right? And loves what he's doing. Comes to Baal Tanya in chapter 15 and says, hey friend, a tzaddik you're surely not. Even if you think you're a Beinani, but you're doing the right thing, but there's no life there. Now that's Yoini, what Chassidus is. That's what Chassidus is. Life is work, not life is sitting on your loins and just enjoying what you're doing. And I know that we say, listen, if only we did that, we would be good. That's a good answer, guys. But when we're sitting here and learning deep Tanya and really, that's not an answer. It's a cop-out. It's a shanda. It's a shanda. Yes, of course, if a guy is a guy is working in Manhattan and here and there, and he doesn't have time to learn a Yiddish word, and he learns finally a Jewish word, and he chaps a reina mincha, he's the greatest. But you're going to say that a koil younger man who does that is great? He stinks. Excuse me the expression. He stinks. It's nothing. But he's learning. He's davening 3 times a day. Big deal. What war did he wage? What was difficult for him to overcome that he overcame? And guess what? Maybe having Avas Yisrael and caring about another Jew, which is not easy. What do they say? It's easy to write a check. But go you yourself and change someone's tire or give them a ride and schlep their packages. It's so much harder for someone who has money to write the check than to do that. I'll write the check, no problems. Don't bother me. Don't bother me. Oh, you understand? Yes, Yoini, what do you want to say? You want
Two
to...
things. First of all, my grandmother, Oliver Shalom, she used to always say the cheapest way to pay for something is with money. It's the cheapest way. Other things are much more expensive.
Right.
That's number one. Number 2, right. This brings this Nakuda in Tanya brings me back to something that I learned a long time ago about how the people that never did Averis, like Yishai, and I think it was like 4 or 5 people that never made any Averis, but they weren't considered to be the most amazing people. They're not David HaMelech. They're not Moshe Rabbeinu. They're not Avraham Avinu. They were great people, but they weren't like David HaMelech. He was an ordinary guy. Like, he was in the real world. He knew how to talk to the people. He didn't steig all day. He was fighting. So I'm saying this brings me back, Rabbi.
I know what. Put on your mute. I know what you're saying, Yaini. I know where you're coming from. Again, it's true what you're saying, but it needs to be in a context. This is the issue that we have. Not every things have to be in a context. So, to go and tell the average person the fact that you enjoy learning, you have to be careful. You have to know how to say it. You have to understand really the person. And I would take from this piece of Tanya the positive, meaning emphasize the importance of the struggle. The struggle. Whatever you do, whether it's in other words, let's say you love learning. The Rebbe told Reb Nissen Emenov that the iskafia, for the Bachurim is that when 220 in 770 in the Lubavitch Yeshivas, 220 is the break, the first session break. So the Rebbe said to Reb Nissen, they shouldn't close their Gemaras at 220, but continue learning to 225, to 222. Or like us, we go over 815, 816, 817. In other words, don't be such a yeke. 2:20, the bell rings, you have to jump to lunch. Another minute, another 2 minutes. That's breaking the habit. So that nakuda is something that we could work on, and that's then, and you don't want to. You're hungry. You're not interested in learning more. You want to go rest. You want to go schmooze. But you take that extra minute, 2 or 3, just to break the habit. That's what he's talking about here. And that's the difference between the Beinoni who's called Oved Hashem and the Beinoni who's Lo Yavodai. So to say that the Beinoni that's Lo Yavodai is small change, halavai we shouldn't commit averis. Halavai we should be meticulous in machshava, dibur, maisa. But we as people who are searching and growing and learning and have families and everything else, that's not adequate. It's not adequate. You have to always push yourself. Chevra, it's Shabbos Mevarchim this Sivan, Shabbos before Matan Torah. The Rebbe spoke about gathering together Jews on the Shabbos. So if you're able to, by the Kiddush, say a Vart, say L'chaim, and we will learn in Mitzvah Shem Monday. Okay? Sei gesund to everyone. Nar Simchas and Psuras Toivos. Thank you. Psuras Toivos. Shabbos. Bye-bye. Shalom.